What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Joined alongside Jacob in Wisconsin here to talk Packers as the Combine is wrapping up and about to head right into free agent frenzy. We are live on YouTube, X, and Rumble right now. You can also check this out in podcast form. Just search for Packernet Podcast wherever you get your podcast. Jacob, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Just got off work in time to run over, change my shirt into this lovely attire, and I'm here to talk some ball with you. It could be what a better way to spend a Monday.
I'm telling you, man. I can think of a few ways to have a better Monday, but hey, it is what it is, right? Let's jump into the news, man. As we had a little bit of news break earlier today, as our good buddy Rob Westerman had tweeted out over at Green Bay Packer Daily. Breaking news: the Packers are re-signing linebacker Isaiah McDuffie on a 2-year, $8 million deal with upside to $9.5 million per Jeremy Fowler. So Isaiah McDuffie is the pick of the two so far. Obviously, you had Eric Wilson set to hit free agency. You had Isaiah McDuffie set to hit free agency. This isn't a huge surprise to me, but I do want to give a shout out to our buddy Chris N. I think he's in the chat. I've already seen him. He had put in the Patreon group over where we asked questions in the Patreon group. He has said, Clayton, 2 years, $8 million for Isaiah McDuffie. I like him as a teammate. Seems to be an all-in 100 guy. But that's too much, though, for a guy that really struggles in pass coverage. Probably means we lose Eric Wilson. I would have chosen Eric Wilson over Isaiah McDuffie. Just my opinion. Do you know details? How much is guaranteed? What are your overall thoughts on the deal and players? So appreciate that, Chris. Thank you for supporting the show. And by the way, we did hear from Jordan Taylor, so we're getting that autographed LVN jersey sent off to him. Appreciate everybody in the Patreon group for supporting here. Chris, there's a couple of different ways you can look at this. Obviously, I think I was on board with you. I've been pretty vocal about it all offseason. I would rather have Eric Wilson than McDuffie. That's just me. I think he showed a little bit more than Isaiah McDuffie did this year. Now, you got to look at the player and say, okay, what do they do well? Which you really hit the nail on the head. He sucked in pass coverage, and he was pretty stout in run defense, right? Spot Track has the placeholders put in place on his contract, so we still don't know all the details exactly how that's going to break down. It sounds like it's going to be incentive-based, though, Jacob, with him being able to make as much as $9.5 million. If I had to guess, I would say somewhere between $2 to $4 million guaranteed, something like that. But I could be wrong, and they may have felt like they needed to be a little more aggressive with Isaiah McDuffie. Now, some of the numbers here, real quick, and I want to get your take on it, Jacob. McDuffie had a 16% stop rate. That was actually second on the team amongst linebackers. He actually had a higher stop percentage rate than Quay Walker did. And you guys know what that means. Stop is I had it wrote down here at one point. It's basically on plays that end in a negative EPA, meaning a positive play for the defense. He was the guy who stopped the ball carrier. Okay, that's what that means. 90% of that statistic is run defense. Now, passer rating when targeted, 124.1. Let me put that into perspective for you guys. Out of all the linebackers in the league, the stack backers, I want to say he was third worst in the entire league in passer rating when targeted, when you remove the minimal snap guys, right? So really, really bad in pass coverage. Pretty stout with run defense. PFF grades, Jacob. And this is working back, working I think 22, 23, and then 24 grades, 58, 57, 55. According to PFF, he's gotten worse every year. On the surface, I really don't like this signing, but if you were to say, okay, Clayton, how much would you sign him for then? I'd say $2 million, okay? So now we're talking about the difference of $2 million. That's nothing against the cap. So it's obvious that Goody wanted to keep him. He's one of his guys, right, that he drafted. I'm sure Jeff Hafley had a say in it because he played for Boston College, and they seem to like McDuffie a little more than we do. But go ahead, Jacob. What do you think about this, man?
Yeah, it's a little bit tough for me because I actually really do like Eric Wilson, but I've always had kind of a soft spot for Isaiah McDuffie. He was a late-round guy, as you said, a Boston College guy. Dude is rocking the grandpa haircut already, which I gotta respect. I saw flashes of him where I thought maybe he could have a higher floor than what I think he's actually ended up being. So I just, for that reason, I would have preferred Eric Wilson, obviously, just because I think Eric Wilson, he's just a physical freak. He's a locker room guy. He's really good on special teams. I don't know how much better or worse Isaiah McDuffie is on special teams, but I just have to believe he's not as good as Eric Wilson. Now, does that mean Eric Wilson was demanding more of a paycheck and that's why we went with McDuffie? I don't know, to be sure. Got to think about, so now we solidified 4 spots, right? With McDuffie and Hopper, and then obviously Quay and Edge Coop. So to me, that still means we're at least a couple more short, right?
At least one more short. I can see if a team running a 4-3 who stays in the nickel the majority of the time only wants to carry 5. I get that. I would feel more comfortable carrying 6, but obviously you carry 6, you got to cut another position, right? I think Holmes hit the nail on the head here, Jake. I'm glad you highlighted that. Goody DiCaprio strikes again. Wilson's also 31. Isaiah McDuffie is 25. I think he's going to be 26, I believe. I could be wrong there. So, yeah, I mean, he went younger here, and I'm with you. I think he showed flashes. $4 million, a little too much for me. But, again, you're talking about a difference of $2 million from where I would have him at, and they've got him. You can make that up with nothing against the cap. You know what I mean? So it's not that big of a deal, but I think what it does, it allows you to not have to press, not have to stress during the draft to grab another linebacker, though. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I compared him to Eric Wilson's special teams. I don't have Eric Wilson's grades in front of me. I've just got McDuffie's, but his first year in 21 had like a 48 special teams grade, obviously not great. This last year he had a 64.2, decent, passable. To 2023, 67.7, but on the most snaps he's ever had in a season, in 2022 he had 261 total special team snaps. He was an 88.5, so he's shown that he can do it, at least be that type of contributor. I would almost guarantee, though, that if I pull up Wilson's special teams numbers, he's going to be quite better.
Yeah. And again, if we signed Wilson to this deal as opposed to McDuffie and he hits that wall, then you lose that whole, hey, maybe we haven't hit his ceiling yet, right? But, again, I don't think it's a horrible signing. I don't want to come off the wrong way. I'm just not like – I've seen a lot of people on Twitter going, yeah, this dude's solid. And I'm going, okay. I mean – I don't think he's a bad football player, but to pretend like he's
Clayton.
What's
do you want to know Eric Wilson's special team grades?
Let's hear it, man.
Starting in 2017, he was a 90.2, then a 79.3, then a 69.8, then in 2020 a 90 flat. Then took a drop off definitely in 59.5 in 2021, but that's when he played for 2 different teams. Comes back to Green Bay in 2022 with a 91.7, 2023 76.6, and last year one of his worst seasons with a 73.7.
Yeah, and that might be, that might be their plan too, is to just run this back. They may bring back Eric Wilson too. The defense, guys, it was good. The defense was good. Like, it was a legit top 5, top 10 defense, somewhere in that range, depending on which metric you want to look at. The run defense was, it was second in the league, I think tied for second with yards per carry allowed. McDuffie was a big part of that. And I've seen some people online saying, yeah, it's not a bad deal for someone who's just going to be a part-time player. And I'm going, part-time? Hell, he played a lot of snaps last year.
Yeah.
Maybe they changed their mind on that this year, but last year I want to say – trying to think, McDuffie here. Where you at? I was looking at where he ranked earlier amongst the entire NFL here and trying to figure it up. Of course, NFL Pro just crapped out on me. Anyway, he had a ton of snaps. I want to say he had the second most snaps amongst all linebackers on the Packers roster, if I remember correctly. So let's see here if I slide down real quick. Let's go run D snaps. Run D snaps amongst linebackers. Actually, I stand corrected. Isaiah McDuffie had the most run defensive snaps. So you can't sit here and brag on the run defense and then pretend like he's not important when he had the most run defense snaps, right? And that's what he did well. So it all obviously begins and ends with the run game, according to Jeff Affley. So I think it's an important thing to identify, okay, what does the player do well, and how did that correlate with how well the team played last year in that regard. So Let's see here. Chuck Jaggers, a good floor for our linebacker, in my opinion. I think that's a good way of putting it, Chuck. But when you talk about, building the floor, like $4 million per, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just trying to compare it to other players that we paid $4 million to on a second contract. But Keyshawn Nixon was making, I think his cap hit was $4 million last year, but his average annual value was like $6 million. So it's a little bit cheaper than that. So maybe it is a good time. Maybe I just talked myself into it, Jake.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's outlandish. It's not a ton of money, but I think like you just said, you could talk yourself into it. You could talk yourself out of it. I think it's at this point, what type of Packer fan do you want to be, Clayton? Is the glass half empty or is it half full?
I try to be half full, but I tell you, man, reading these comments on X, it's tough. It is tough out here in these streets. Yeah. I'll tell you. So there you go. There's your breaking news of the night. Isaiah McDuffie returning to Green Bay to play linebacker. All right, let's go back to the chat here. Chris N said, I went with acquiring a free agent. We needed improvement to Myers. It's time to compete for a Super Bowl now. I thought, ? Sounded like Ron Burgundy, didn't we? So he's obviously referring to the poll question of the night where I asked, if Josh Myers leaves Green Bay in free agency, which of these options do you like best at center? Draft his replacement, replace him with a free agent, move Elton Jenkins to center, or move Zach Tom to center. Right now, leading the way is draft his replacement. Second place is move Elton Jenkins to center. Third place is replace him with a free agent. And then move Zach Tom to center, only got 5%. So it's 46% draft his replacement. And then in a somewhat close second, move Elton Jenkins to center. Jacob, how would you answer that question, man, if we were to ask you that? And I'm going to try to find the poll question on Twitter.
That's a good question because I'd have to put an asterisk next to it and say I would go to free agency only if we could get Dahlman, right? And if he's the guy, then sign him, give him that money that I don't think is outlandish, even if I don't remember what we thought was fair, but anywhere from 8 to 12 million to my eyes, if he's a starting, and the way he graded out, what was he, like a top 10, at least top 5 graded center. So I'd go that as my 1A. 1B would be definitely draft. I've talked about it many times. There's 3 or 4 different guys that I think could be really plug and play type guys. I don't like the idea of moving Zach Tom there in any way. I'm okay with the idea of moving Elton there, depending on who we have behind him. Obviously thinking like a Jordan Morgan or, a couple of the other bigger, younger guys. Maybe still Nacho Libre surprises us and decides he needs to push to be in one of that starting 5. It just depends. It's too early. I mean, we can speculate, obviously, and a lot of it's going to obviously depend on the draft, how these guys, some of them are coming back from rehab, how they're going to take that either second-year step, third-year step, fourth-year step. We got a lot of guys that have potential, but who's going to put it all together? But this being said, man, I totally think I'd go free agent first, draft the replacement second, which is most likely in my eyes, and then Jenkins, Tom.
Got it. Chuck Jagger says, I don't like moving O-line if they're good where they are. Just keep it. Yeah, and here's the issue I keep coming back to. And the reason I asked this question is because I wanted to kind of see what fellow fans thought about it. Because it's easy to kind of get caught up in your own thoughts and you think, okay, here's the way to go, and you're completely missing the scenario or maybe what the majority thinks. But got our ass kicked by Philly because of the trenches. And mainly I'm talking about the interior, right? If it's just all right, I've seen a lot of people say Jacob Monk's the guy. I'm like, y'all are giving me a lot of not people in our chat, but on Twitter, y'all give me a lot of hope with Jacob Monk, man. I don't know what y'all seen. I don't think he played much, but whatever y'all seen, y'all think he's going to be a dog. Sign me up if that's the case. You're talking about being set at center for 3 years before you have to pay him, man. That's a huge asset. I don't know if there's any merit to that, that comment. But on Twitter, I asked the same question. If Josh Myers leaves Green Bay in free agency, which of these options do you like best at center? First place is draft his replacement at 36.6%. Second is Elton Jenkins to center. That was 35.3%, so a little bit closer than our YouTube poll, but the same result. And then third and fourth place, a little bit closer than the YouTube poll. Replaced with a free agent, 15.8%. And then, of course, move Zach Tom to center, 12.3%. The one thing that's sticking out to me with these poll questions, Jacob, is no one wants Zach Tom at center. They want to keep him at tackle is what it seems like. Do you agree with that as well?
Yeah, I mean, that was my main thought was don't take away the pillar of the offensive line, which I believe he is.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense. It really does, man. And when the Packers have good tackle play, they're competing.
Yeah.
When a tackle goes down, like when we lost to the Niners in the playoffs that one year, people forget Bakhtiari went down that week in practice, right? We were without our left tackle, and we still almost beat them. Bakhtiari plays in that game. We probably beat them by a couple scores. I believe that because Aaron was kind of uncomfortable all night long. So, yeah, I mean, you keep the tackles in place. Again, the tiers of importance, in my opinion, is blindside tackle. So it'd be left tackle. I really think right tackle should be tier 2 as well. I always just put tackle because I feel like both of them are that important. But yeah, center is something we've got to get shored up though. If Elton's the guy, great. But if one of these centers that in the draft that obviously are going to be maybe in the second to fourth round, if they fall right in your lap, that might be the best case scenario as well. I don't know, man. I shudder to think about us drafting another second or a third round center and end up being Josh Myers for 4 more years.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here going, we did it again, boys. We did it again. We did it at safety forever.
Yeah. The way that just watching the way Jared Wilson ran, though, he really does start popping off the page to me. And if we could get him like early third, mid third, late third, I would absolutely run that up to the podium. Just seeing how physical he was. It was pretty cool. And I think, let me see, he didn't do too well on the bench. I don't see him up in the top contenders here, but that's all right. He doesn't need to be a bruiser.
Yeah, so we've got Jared Wilson as our top center. He's in the 87 spot currently. He get the maximum bonus, so he balled out obviously at the combine. He's sitting right there with the likes of Luke Kandra, and I'm trying to see if there's another offensive lineman. Chase Lunt slightly ahead of him at tackle, but he is definitely our top center in the draft. He may even be higher than Gray Zabel. I'm not 100% sure there. Let me see if I can find that real quick because obviously many people are seeing Gray Zabel.
Yeah.
Gray Zabel's in the 52 spot. So seeing that he's versatile, I think many people would see him as the top center if you wanted to put him at center.
Yeah, there's another couple of updates I can give you guys here because today the big hog mollies went out and did the bench press. So leading all of the offensive linemen with 33 reps was Luke Kandra, the guard out of Cincinnati. But guess who was number 2? Did you see that by chance, Clayton?
Mm-mm.
Our boy Armand Membu came in with 31 reps, followed by Jackson Slater, also with 31. Clay Webb, a guy that I've been trying to pound the table for, is a very late round steal. Clay Webb is a center / guard out of Jacksonville State. He had 29 reps. John Williams, the guard out of Cincinnati, had 29. Miles Frazier, guard out of LSU, had 27. Logan Brown, another offensive tackle out of Kansas that I feel like we should take another look at, 26 reps. And then Gray Zabel, also at 26 reps. And then Ursay from Minnesota also had 25, and then it kind of falls off.
You mentioned Clay Webb there at guard out of Jacksonville State. We've got him in the 115 spot. He graded out really well in PFF, but obviously smaller school. You got to kind of be a little bit aware of that, but it just depends on what their level of competition was for sure. So, all right, there you go. So we got that poll question answered. What you got?
Prince said that Jonah Monheim, who you guys know is kind of my quote unquote, I won't say he's a draft crush, but he's definitely one that I like at the center position for the positional value you could get him. Prince says that Jonah Monheim not participating in the combine drills may freeze him there in the 4th or 5th round area. I think that's great. I love that.
Yeah. We've got him in the 127 spot right now, and he is a center / guard. So, is he lit up in the blue? Let me make sure he is. Okay, good deal.
Yeah.
So Jonah Monheim in the 127 spot. So you got several candidates, right? Like above him in the 119 spot is Jake Majors out of Texas, right? Yeah. Another center. So you got a few of those guys kind of lurking around that area. But above him, Jacob Bayer out of Arkansas State. He's in the 113 spot. And again, our board isn't final yet, but it's starting to really come together. So really looking forward to getting all the RAS data in. And then, of course, Daniel Jeremiah's top 150, 33rd team's top 150, Dane Brugler's top 150, or however many he's got. So it's going to be a blast getting that finalized. So, all right, let's move it back to X real quick. And you just keep popping up chats, anything you see, Jacob. But I'm going to hop back over here and let's kind of walk through what we learned today. I thought this was cool. Jalen Noel tweeted out, the height doesn't matter with a laughing emoji. Obviously, his vertical jump, 41.5 inches, broad jump, 11'2", and then his 40-yard dash was a 4.39. So Jalen Noel continuing to turn heads.
Dude,
as he just had a monster.
You know what's even crazier than that? I mean, obviously those are great stats. He ranked number 1 out of all wide receivers with 23 reps at 225. The next highest guy was Jack Besh with 19. So he beat him by 4 reps. I mean, the guy he's just a stud.
That's
man.
wild. And, you know, going back to my lifting days, let me tell you what I used to look. Now, short arms, right? It's typically the key. People with the longer arms, a little bit harder to bench press. I wonder what his arm length is, because you can be a little bit manipulated in that regard. But 23 reps? Is that what you said, Jacob? I remember
23. Yep.
Yeah. For someone his size, still phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, we used to have these guys in the weight room back when I was lifting, and they'd have those short little arms and they bounce it off their chest, 8 inches off their chest in the air. But all you had to do was lock out there. So.
Dude, that's funny you said that. So his arms are 29.5. That's the 10th percentile. So he's got some little tiny T-Rex arms.
Yeah, little bitty arms. It sounds silly, but wingspan matters as a receiver. Catch radius and all that. Mm-hmm. Tetairoa McMillan is one that just continues to fascinate me. I say that, Jacob, because he could go top 10. He might fall out of the top 20. I think that dude.
That's crazy.
Everything I'm seeing, he looks like he's going to be a stud. But, I mean, anybody can bust out. We talk about it all the time. So, Jalen Noel again. And shout out to Tim, who is doing the countdown to the draft. Frankie Bag of Donuts winners, the Claymaker Matthews, and Rashawn Bain Gary days away until the NFL draft. So we are 52 days from the NFL draft. Really excited about that. So, more draft news here. The Tennessee Titans zeroing in on their choice with the number 1 pick. Ian Rappaport tweeted out, as the Titans evaluate the top players and their plans at number 1, they'll host some key prospects over the next week. So they're going to host Miami quarterback Cam Ward. That's going to be on Friday. Penn State edge defender Abdul Carter will be on Thursday. Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders will visit Monday. And then Colorado cornerback / wide receiver Travis Hunter visits later. So they are really starting to zero in there. All 4 of those, by the way, guys, would be worthy of the number 1 pick for us for the most part. Like if we were to hop back here, and I'm not going to pull the board up, I'll just kind of give you an idea of where we have these guys. Travis Hunter we have as the top prospect in the draft. Okay. Abdul Carter we have as the number 2 prospect in the draft. And then Cam Ward is the number 8 prospect in the draft, but you guys know how quarterbacks are treated 1 tier higher than where they were when they are. And then Shedeur Sanders is sitting in the 14th spot. Now, I think we've got another tweet relating to Shedeur that we'll get to here in a second. But what do you think about this with Tennessee at number 1? Obviously, they've got our boy Will Levis down there doing mayonnaise commercials. Do you think they still might hold out hope for him to be the future? Or you think this is the year they pull the trigger on the quarterback?
I mean, it seems odd to me that not more people are talking about them just running up the ticket to get a quarterback. I don't see. I've never been a Will Levis fan. I've never really honestly given him the time of day. From what I've seen of him play in college and in the pros, I never was impressed by really anything he does. Don't like the Mayo commercials either. I do like Mayo. That guy puts it on everything from what I remember him talking about. So. Mm-hmm. If I'm the Titans fan base, I have no idea why you wouldn't be insisting that it's either Cam Ward or Shedeur. I mean, I lived in Nashville. I'm not talking bad about, but I'll tell you this: it was rare if I met a Tennessee Titans fan while I lived in Nashville. Very rare. There was a lot of, and again, I lived in Nashville on Broadway, so that's just everybody comes from a different city kind of thing. But it took a while for me to find like, quote unquote diehard Tennessee Titans fans. We could go there. We'd buy tickets like 10 minutes before the game for like $30. I'd be wearing my Rashawn Gary jersey. My roommate Moonshine would be wearing a Dallas jersey, and we'd just go sit there. And then you'd walk up into the front row like in the second quarter, and nobody would stop you. Like we'd go there to rip on other fan bases and just get drunk. That was basically what we'd do. But I just, that being said, I mean, there has to be a contingency of Titans fans that are banging the table like, dude, get us one of these stud quarter. Cam Ward, I just think is too good to pass up. I'm not quite sold on Shedeur yet. I think a lot of it, he's living in his father's shadow and getting a lot of hype from it and playing at Colorado. But what's your opinion? I know, weren't you a Will Levis guy at one point?
Yeah, the thing that got me with Will Levis, he wasn't like my top quarterback in the draft, but I try to break things down into 4 categories when it comes to a quarterback. And I've actually been pretty successful predicting who's going to be the good quarterbacks just with my personal opinion. The draft board, I don't let my personal opinion sway the draft board at all. You guys know, you've seen the recipe now. We let the board do the work. But Will Levis did have a quick release. He had a strong arm. His decision-making was always a question coming out, and that's probably the most important thing. So, he wouldn't grade that high in terms of pre-snap read, post-snap decision-making. Quick release, pretty decent. Felt like his accuracy was okay as well. Those are the 4 things I think are most important: the ability to pre-snap read, post-snap adjust, and read on the fly post-snap, quick release, and accuracy. I think all the great quarterbacks in the history of the game had all of those 4 traits. So, I could dive into these guys and tell you how I feel a little bit different, but I will say this: the rumor mill is stirring from the combine, and Shedeur Sanders, it sounds like, rubbed people the wrong way with his interviews.
Right? J. Cole.
Look at
that. J. Cole says verbatim, as Clayton's basically saying it. It says, apparently Shedeur rubbed some people the wrong way. He's cocky, apparently. Some of this stuff is BS. One thing that I've learned is people hate self-confidence. So like we've talked about before, it's lying season. It is the type of season where you're going to start saying whatever you can to try to maybe make a player rise or fall just to make your situation better. Like Prince is saying here, he's Deion's son is cocky. No way.
No way.
What are the chances? So that, take everything with a grain of salt. I understand that, but I don't. Fred
Farley says he rubbed himself the wrong way.
So Turtle says he literally blamed his O-line for the losses. If he's that type of a player, I could see a lot of teams just saying, I don't need that in the locker room.
Yeah. 2-0 for this says he rubbed people like AFAM rubs his Pat Mahomes voodoo doll. So, all right. So now, before these reports came out, I watched his interviews and everything. And if I'm being 110% honest, I felt the same way. And I don't look at someone being cocky like, do I want them on my team? I always try to run everything through a filter of remove the emotion and think of the great quarterbacks in the history of the game. And would they have interviewed that way? You understand what I'm saying? Like, would Tom Brady have interviewed that way? No, he wouldn't have. We know he wouldn't have. Now, he went to the owner of the Patriots once he was drafted and said, I want you to remember my name. I'm the best decision you've ever made. Peyton Manning told the Colts GM, if you pass up on me in this draft, I'm going to kick your ass for the next 15 years. Told him that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But when it's just kind of trying to act cool and just, got all the bling hanging out everywhere, and it just, I don't know, man. Tell me the last quarterback to do that in the league that was great. And I could be missing a bunch of them, I'm just trying to think. Trying to think of a quarter. Think of the name off just the first names that come to mind for you, Jacob, when it comes to the quarterbacks in the history of the game. Some of the best quarterbacks.
Some of the best?
Yeah, just in the history of the game. Just name
Marino, Elway, Favre, Montana, Steve Young, Jeff George.
Right. Did any of them? Yeah, you said Jeff George. Boy, everybody expected him to be good, and he ended up being
Willie Beeman, definitely. Yeah,
Willie Beeman. You understand what I'm saying, though? All those guys you named off, I couldn't see them acting like that at an event where you refuse to even perform, too. That's the other thing. Like the whole point was to go and interview and put your best foot forward, and you're coming away kind of looking like it's all about you and about attention. That's not a good look. Now, here's the deal. If he's a baller, if this transfers over from college to pros, none of that's going to matter. He's going to be a superstar, and people will not even talk about it. 2-0 for this says Rex Grossman. That dude is 125% Caucasian, no doubt about it. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just kind of how I seen it. And then you look at people like C.J. Stroud, a couple years ago, just humble as all get out. And then you've seen it translate to the field. Had a great rookie year, took a little step back next year, probably expecting him after the sophomore slump to take another step forward. Jordan Love, one of the most humble dudes you'll ever meet, And that doesn't mean you're not confident. Like, you can tell Jordan's confident in his ability, but I don't know. I don't know how else to say it, man. I can name off a half a dozen quarterbacks that I really like in the league, and every one of them, to me, it seems like they've got enough self-awareness, enough social IQ to know. And all social IQ guys, is your ability to understand how other people perceive you. That's all that is. That's what social IQ means. You ever been with that person in a room with a group of people and going, this guy is making an ass out of himself and he doesn't even realize it.
He thinks he's killing it right now.
Oh, yeah. He's date Mike. That's what it is. He's date Mike.
That's exactly it, dude.
So again, now here, this is what I'm talking about. There's one, Chuck Jagers, Joe Namath, great example. How long ago? You know what I'm saying? Because it is a great example. Joe Namath, Broadway Joe, was a hell of a quarterback, but he was cocky, man. There's no two ways about that. Joe Falco. I don't know if he meant Shane Falco or Joe Flacco.
Hey, I love Joe Flacco. All my buddies give me crap about it.
Yeah.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, he was a little flashy there with the chest hair and the.
Yeah,
but honestly, think about it. The one that comes to mind right away is the biggest bust in my modern, Johnny Manziel.
Bingo.
Coming in, just being an arrogant, what?
It's the same stuff we said about Caleb Williams last year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the same. Now, I have not seen Shedeur Sanders pull the antics that Caleb Williams has up to this point, right? So that's a good thing. But Caleb Williams just always seemed like he was all about himself,
You know who I think someone that flirted with being a Manziel that ended up turning the ship back over and now has had a pretty darn good career?
I think I know who you're talking about. Say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3.
Baker Mayfield.
Yep.
Exactly.
Chuck, Cam Newton was loud AF and still is. And here's the thing about Cam. Cam had a good run there for 2 or 3 years, right? Won an MVP. How many championships did he win? It's like and you guys remember the Super Bowl. Please tell me you remember this. That fumble that he refused to dive on in the Super Bowl, he just I ain't getting in there. It's like, telling you, man, there's signs. There are signs. Just like if I hit the lottery, I will not tell anybody, but there will be signs. Okay. You're going to have a shortage of what would there be a shortage of if I ever hit the lottery, Jacob? What do you think?
I got a joke, but I can't say it.
Never mind then. Let's move along. All right. So there's your Shedeur Sanders and quarterback talk. Again, obviously the Packers aren't looking to take a quarterback unless one of these guys dropped, sank out of sight and fell right in their lap. And Goody had a Brooks, unbelievable.
That's right.
They had a great grade on them, right? But we got to talk about it because this is what steers the draft, man. This is what drives the draft and how that's what's going to determine who falls, how far. The more quarterbacks taken in the first round, that's what we're looking for. So if I could climb up here, I'm going to come back to that tweet here in a second, but I wanted to jump right into this since we're talking about it. Jackson Dart, okay. JPA Football on Twitter said, rumors, 2 teams strongly believe that quarterback Jackson Dart will be selected within the top half of the opening round. So I think they're talking about the first round there. When he said opening round, I'm like, damn, are we playing golf? What are we doing here? But the first round, they're thinking Jackson Dart will be a first-round pick. Now, we talked about this a few weeks ago, Jacob, if you'll remember. Started to pick up a little bit of steam there. I'm going to go to the draft board. Let's see exactly where we've got him now. We've got Jackson Dart in the 73 spot. So in no way, shape, or form do we see him as a first-round quarterback. I've actually got Jalen Milroe significantly higher than Jackson Dart. And I know I'm probably the only person on the face of the earth that has my board sitting like that. I've got Jalen Milroe sitting in the 55 spot. Now, I felt like this about several quarterbacks last year, and lo and behold, we ended up getting, 5 or 6 quarterbacks went in the first round. Teams will overdraft for quarterback. There's no doubt about it. There's 2 drafts every spring, as Greg Cosell says, a quarterback draft and an NFL draft. So I don't know how you feel about Jackson Dart, man. Do you feel like do you think he'll go in the first round? Because it's PFF. I mean, he was off the charts his entire career in college.
Yeah.
What do you think, man?
I could see it. I think it's going to be a domino effect of what happens in this offseason going forward. I think a lot of it starts with what happens with Sam Darnold and whether or not they're going to keep him, because if not, then that line keeps going. What happens with one of the Steelers quarterbacks? What happens in Vegas? What happens all the way over there? Because if all these puzzle pieces kind of fall into place, then maybe a team is not looking at him like they need to get up into the first to get him. If they, like you said, maybe let him fall to you in the mid-second, or if he does make it into, yeah, that's a great point. He does feel like this year's Bo Nix, where he's kind of.
I was going to say, I don't know if I agree with it until I hear an interview. I just know this, Jacob. Last year, if you guys were listening to the show, I caught an interview and I played a clip of it on the show where Craig Cosell interviewed Bo Nix on his podcast. Man, did he. I was like, this kid gets it. And lo and behold, you got, what's his name out there in Denver, the coach?
Sean Payton.
Yeah, Sean Payton, seen him, was like, that's my dude right there. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's first thing that came to mind there for sure.
No, I think that's a great combination, and like you said, it'll probably come down to how he interviews and what kind of poise he has and all that stuff. But I wouldn't, man, if I was a betting man, I'd say 70% that he does go into the first. But
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if he falls into that mid-second and somebody takes a stab at him. I agree with you though. I think Jalen Milroe is a much more interesting prospect. That if he falls, I think you got in my head, because a lot of the mocks I've been doing lately, I'll just randomly sneak a quarterback in there.
Right.
Like, dang it.
You got to be careful for sure. All right, let's go back to where we were here. We already hit on the poll question. We got the Isaiah McDuffie news. So here is some T. Higgins news, as he's officially off the market, at least for the time being. Ari Mirov tweeted out, the Bengals are placing the franchise tag on T. Higgins for a second straight year. So obviously they'll get hit with that 120% cap hit. So, it doesn't mean they can't trade him, Jacob. It's just them securing his rights so they can at least get something for him, work out a new deal, or have another solid receiver on their team. You guys know how I felt about this. I was not okay with trying to pay T. Higgins $30 million a year, 25 to $30 million a year. I just haven't seen enough in that regard. But it looks like, at least for the time being, he's going to stay in Cincinnati. What do you think about this? Does this bother you at all? Were you hoping the Packers might have a shot at him, or how do you feel?
Realistically, I never thought the Packers were actually going to sign him, and I honestly wouldn't want them to spend that much money. Bengals, they got a lot of people to sign with. Yeah, thanks, Tool, for this. They got a lot of people to sign, and when it's all done, they're going to look around, I think, after they've signed maybe 2, 3, 4 guys, and they're like, we have no money left for a while now. So I'm cool with it. Have you heard any of the theories about people trying to have him do it like a tag and trade?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying here, is like that could be what the Bengals are thinking about doing, because it does give them a little bit more time. Obviously you got to carry that tag there. You got to carry that tag when the new league starts. You got to have that cap hit allocated, right? But this might buy them a little bit of time to put a trade together for sure. I think that's probably the more likely scenario. But at the same time, they may be willing to they got to be willing to pony it up now, because if no teams come calling, they're stuck with it, and it's fully guaranteed. So, I think it's a possibility, though. I do. All right, let's move it along here. Thought this was interesting. Tom Silverstein, we talk about Spoon all the time, works for the Journal-Sentinel. Jaden Higgins, Savion Williams among the big fast receivers the Packers could be targeting in the 2025 NFL draft. So it's obvious now that Tim is working a second job running Tom Silverstein's Twitter page here. So we know that without a doubt. Let's see where Jaden Higgins is sitting now, and we'll also look Savion up here. But it's pretty cool, man, to see Tim's guy continue to get talked about, as he is now officially in the 60 spot on our board. He's slowly creeping up, and we don't even have an RAS for him yet either. So once we get an RAS, he's liable, with that size, he's liable to get a 5-point bonus, which if he got a full RAS and nobody else changed, that would put him right around the 54 spot for us now. At one point, I had him down around 80. So he is really, really skyrocketed up the board throughout the offseason for sure. What do you think, man? You think the Packers realistically could take Jaden Higgins maybe in the second round?
I really do. I hope that they do. That big-bodied receiver like they talked about, it's hard to find people with those types of skill sets. They mentioned Savion Williams out of TCU. He's 6'4", 222. He ran decent with a 4.48. But again, I want to throw another guy into that mix, was Deontay Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee, 6'5", 205, ran a blazing 4.3 flat.
Yeah.
So if Jaden Higgins unfortunately gets past us, we can still come around for a few different draft picks throughout the draft and get that kind of big stud receiver that we've been looking for that's fast.
Yeah. Kevin Realms in the chat here over on X. Appreciate you swinging through, buddy. He says, who do you want the Pack to get in the first 2 rounds? It's a boring answer, Kevin, but for me, it's the best player, 2 best player available, 2 best players on the board, right? If you're saying in a perfect scenario, what position would you like to get filled? For me, it would be 3 tech. I would love to see 3 tech, and probably it depends on if Ja is going to be on the team or not. And I don't know what the hell is going to happen there, to be honest with you, Jacob. It kind of feels like now the Packers might try to call his bluff and wait it out because obviously the trade comp isn't there. It looks like it's probably a 5th or a 6th round pick is what some people are saying. Fans are going to roast Goody if he only gets a 5th or a 6th round pick for Jair Alexander. After he got a 3rd for Rasul Douglas, like that's a tough look, man. But yeah, in terms of the first 2 rounds, I really think we got to shore up 3 tech. That's just me. What I mean by 3 tech, Kevin, is defensive tackle that lines up in the B gap. Kenny's going to be gone here in a year or 2, probably, the way the contract really steps down. You can free up some cap if you want to move on. Although he was pretty darn good against the run, believe it or not, with his run stop percentage last year and him playing that touch spot we talked about so much during Chalk Talk. But yeah, I don't know, man. For me, I keep coming to 3 tech and I keep coming back to interior offensive line. We got to get center shored up. So in a perfect world, give me the 2 best players on the board. And it just so happens that those 2 best players, Jacob, whenever you take them, are the position that you need. And that's 3 tech and center. That's me.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind if we did something like a Gray Zabel or some sort of stud offensive lineman. And then kind of like you said, I would prefer us to do either like an edge or a 3 tech, possibly a cornerback. And then in round 3, I definitely want us to at least hit a wide receiver by that point. Yeah. That's just me personally.
That's the other thing too, as Kevin says here. I think if we get a 3 tech and the D-line gets pressure, I'd wait 3 or 4 rounds for DB. I agree with you. You know, if it just kind of falls into place just right. But let me give you an example. Like at 23, I'd be okay with corner. If somehow Will Johnson from Michigan fell to us at 23, hell yeah, run the card up there. I'd be okay with it. Jahdae Barron is in the 17 spot on our board. The Packers have met with him. Listen, they know Jahdae Barron ain't lasted until the 2nd round, so there's got to be a reason they met with him. They're trying to figure out is he worth that 23rd pick, right? And he may end up being a top 30 visit. Who knows? So that's another corner. To me, those are the only 2 corners that I would be okay with taking at the 23rd pick. Everyone else, if it comes down to Siobhan Ravel Jr., obviously battled the injury last year. I think he's got a hell of a story. I think he loves the game of football. There's no doubt about that. But he's in the 27 spot, so it'd be a little bit of a reach for us. And with that injury, you never really know how that's going to play out. So I think you just got to focus on the trenches, man. And, you know, Al Davis 101, which was also many of the people that coached under Al Davis and were administrators under Al Davis, you know, one of which, Ron Wolf, kind of comes from that same lineage. You kind of build your team around who do we have to beat this year, right? Like the Packers should be looking at it like, where did we get knocked out in the playoffs? Okay, we got beat by the Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, why did we lose that game? Well, because we didn't have a cornerback and Ja was out. You know what I'm saying? It was because we got beat up in the trenches, specifically on the offensive line. So that's got to be in the back of your mind. It does, man. You got to get that right. So, and again, that's why we asked the question we let off here, the poll question. Let's see if we get an update on that. Yeah, draft his replacement is leading the way at 40% here on YouTube. And then move Elton Jenkins to center is 2nd place with 32%. So if you're going to draft him, we've also got to be prepared for that draft pick to not hit right away, just like Josh Myers. Josh Myers never really did hit, you know. And if that's the case, we get in the playoffs again next year and get our ass kicked in the trenches. We can't be sitting here going, I can't believe this happened again. The writing was on the wall. You know, that's why I'm more like, what if we did kick Elton to center, you know? Because that's the other thing. I know there's many people that don't like that idea. And they're like, he hasn't got that many, or he hasn't been good at center. How many snaps has he gotten at center in the pros? Like he hasn't got to go through training camp as a center either. You know what I mean? So I think that comes into play a little bit too. But I don't know. got anything you want to add to that? Savion Williams, I looked him up here as well. I had him pulled up and I went away from it. I was going to give you guys an idea of where he is. Savion Williams, wide receiver out of TCU. He was at the Senior Bowl. The Packers have not met with him, but he's in the 96 spot for us. So that might be around the third round that our board is showing where he could potentially be, So, all right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, just Savion Williams. I think his biggest knock was that he has a little bit of a drop issue, not massive, but definitely compared to the other two, it's something to take in consideration. But he has freakishly large hands. He's like in the 90th percentile for how big his hands are. So you always like seeing that.
Got it. All right. Up next, I said, does Darius Slay have one more good year in him? Looks like Adam Schefter tweeted out, Darius Slay will, in fact, be designated a post-June 1 release, saving the Eagles $4.3 million against the cap. Here are his PFF grades over the course of his career. 50, 70, 78, 80, 80, 75, 56, 62, 81, 73, 66, 73. So you can look at this a number of different ways. You can go, man, his ceiling is 81, his floor is in the 50s. But then if you look at it over the course of the last 4 years, you go 81, 73, 66, 73, not bad. Over the last 2 years, he hasn't hit that 80 mark according to PFF in 3 years, Jacob. So I don't know how you feel about this. I don't know how much money he would warrant on the open market. Again, this is Darius Slay from the Philadelphia Eagles. What do you think, man? Would you be interested in signing him? And did he automatically kind of propel himself up as one of the top free agent cornerbacks in this year's free agents?
I would be interested for sure if the money was right. We watched him a long time in Detroit. We've obviously seen him lately in Philly, and I liked the way he played. He was a physical guy. I would honestly love it if we could get him for the right price. Mm-hmm. I don't know what he would dictate. I don't know if you have anything on him, what his projected salary would be like from Spot Track or something like that. But I still fear I'm such a cheap dude, man. And so anything over 10 mil for him, I just don't know if I'd be comfortable with. And then is he more of an outside guy? Is he more of a slot? Is he a safety hybrid lately? Like, where have they been utilizing him lately?
Right. Yeah, he is not on Spot Track's free agent list yet. Okay. And I'm sure they won't have a market value for him because he was under contract. In terms of where he lined up, let me see if I can search that real quick. So let's go. Darius.
I really like his coverage grades as well. I love his tackle grades for being a corner. I always liked that about him, that he felt like a more physical type cornerback, one that wasn't afraid to go and get his head dirty and come up and play the run and all that kind of stuff. Run defense grades aren't as great, but he's a corner. They're not going to always be spectacular, but
he's definitely an outside corner. Definitely.
Okay. I'd be all right with it, man.
All right. There you go. Obviously for the right price. So, yeah. All right, moving along here. You guys know I've been very vocal this offseason. When many people were talking about T. Higgins, I was saying Chris Godwin was my guy. I just tweeted this out. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers reportedly do not plan on franchise tagging wide receiver Chris Godwin. Now, keep in mind, guys, that doesn't mean they're not going to re-sign him, right? It's just saying they're not going to put the franchise tag on him. If they don't work out a deal before free agency opens, they'll let him test the market. And then obviously if he comes back with a deal that they like, then they can match it and he can stay in Tampa. But I've said since January, of all the potential options for the Packers to add a receiver, he is hands down my favorite. Highly unlikely, but I would love this move. And the ankle is healthy. So look at these PFF grades here. I don't know if you can see that well or not. Here we go. So starting in 2017, 81, 80, 90, 76, 81, 75, 77, 86. Last year, before he got hurt, he played 397 snaps before they demolished that ankle last year. So if there was any chance that injury was going to linger on him, I would be worried. It sounds like he's going to be fine, good to go. What would you be willing to pay for somebody like that, man? Because this is what I was talking about with the whole DK Metcalf talk. Like, if we're going to trade for DK Metcalf, which obviously it seems like that has kind of fizzled out now, that rumor. If you were going to trade for him and pay him $25 to $30 million a year, I'd much rather give Chris Godwin $20 million a year for someone who I feel like has been way, way more productive than DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I mean, that's consistency right there. And I agree. I'd be much more comfortable paying the guy the money if I mean, what is that? His worst year ever was a 75-7.
Right.
Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah.
I think that, like you said, that would be by far the most comfortable signing that we could make that I'd be on board with.
Yeah, and if you looked at the Buccaneer statistics here, just to kind of see where he was at, it's kind of hard to. Let me see if I can pull up his career stats. I don't know if I can. Yeah, here we go. Just to kind of put it along with PFF grades. Okay, here is receiving yards starting in 2018: 842 yards with 7 touchdowns, 1,333 yards with 9 touchdowns, 840 yards with 7 touchdowns. Only played 12 games that year though. 1,103 yards with 5 touchdowns, 1,023 yards with only 3 touchdowns, 1,024 yards with only 2 touchdowns. Mike Evans was obviously the go-to touchdown dude in that offense. And, of course, last year getting hurt and only playing in 7 games, 576 yards with 5 touchdowns. But keep this in mind. If he hadn't got hurt and he had played, let's just say 14 games, so let's double the statistics, he would have finished with over 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns last year. That would have been the most touchdowns he's had in his entire career. So I don't know how you feel about it, but that's the dude that sticks out to me for sure.
You have to take again into consideration that he's the number 2 to Mike Evans, who arguably has the best 10-year stretch other than Jerry Rice in history. Right. We're talking 10 straight years of wide receiver 1 going over 1,000 yards receiving. Like, that's not easy to do. He was consistently right there. Like you said, if he doesn't get hurt most of those years, he'd be right up there.
Yeah, and you could look at that 2 different ways, right? You could say, well, Mike Evans is on the team, that's why he's having success. Well, if Mike Evans is having more success than him, it's obvious that Chris Godwin was forcing teams to really play that even as well. Like, you couldn't just completely shade or bracket Mike Evans because you had Chris Godwin on the other side. So definitely kind of, goes both ways for sure. So, yeah. So there's a little Chris Godwin talk. Again, that was one of my favorites for the right price, of course, as we've always talked about here. So another receiver that got brought up. Jacob, are you in a hurry? If we need to wrap up, you just tell me, okay? Or you just hop off.
I'm all right.
Good. All right. So I thought this was cool. 33rd team said some potential new wide receiver duos following the draft. So they put like Drake London with Matthew Golden. They put Nico Collins with Jalen Noel. They put George Pickens with Emeka Egbuka, Calvin Ridley with Luther Burden III. And they put our very own Jaden Reed with I'm trying to think. I had the name down earlier. Tetairoa is how you say it. Tetairoa McMillan. All right. How cool would that be if Tetairoa McMillan fell to the Packers at 23? I would run that card up there, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, he's in the number 7 spot for us, Jacob. And Dane Brugler has him at 7 as well. Daniel Jeremiah has him at 15. Kyle Krabs had him at 14. Like, everybody is going, yep, this is the dude. This is the wide receiver in this draft. How awesome would that be? Jaden Reed in the slot and Tetairoa McMillan out there on the edge.
That'd be insane. I mean, he's one of those players where I try not to even get excited about it because I just – second where you see him go off the clock to some other team, and a team, of course, that I'm sure that I absolutely can't stand, that will just solidify that wide receiver group. But I mean, bro, you talk about me, I'd immediately buy the jersey. I'd immediately start the hype train. It would be pretty awesome.
I've seen multiple people tweet this out, so I'm just going to let it roll a couple times. Where's it at? I know I tweeted it out. Here you go. Look at this catch right here.
Dude,
I'm zooming in. Look at this. Somebody come look at this. He literally caught it backhanded, one-handed, and took it between his legs before he hit the ground. Like, yeah,
that'll work. That'll do.
Yeah, that'll do.
That'll do. Big.
Wouldn't
that be funny? Back-to-back years, we went Arizona first-round draft picks.
That would be why I didn't even think about that. It's Pipeline with Jordan Morgan, isn't it? They probably played together. So that's very interesting. So, again, man, Jaden Reed, Tetairoa McMillan, highly unlikely that he falls to 23. But who knows, man? Drafts in Green Bay, he falls to 13 or 14. All of a sudden you hear there has been a trade, and everybody raises their Spotted Cow or their Miller Lite or whatever it is they're drinking. Their Schaefer Light if you're balling on a budget like me,
Schaefer Light.
Yeah. Is it even a thing? And it can't be.
I haven't seen that in years.
Yeah, me neither, man. You could get like a case of that for $225 or something. It was insane back in the day. It was like you could actually buy a case of Schaefer Light, sell the cans, and make money. You would come out ahead. You would profit. That's how cheap that stuff was. All right, so 3013 put this list out. Thought it was interesting. The winners of the combine this year. So they're saying Quinn Ewers showed up and showed out. Where is old Quinn? He was really low on our board, man. Let's see. It's wild to think because going into the offseason, people were seeing him as possibly the top quarterback in the draft. He's in the 111 spot for us, Jacob. 111 right now. So they got Quinn Ewers out of Texas, wide receiver Matthew Golden out of Texas, Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State at wide receiver, Jalen Noel out of Iowa State, wide receiver. And then Dante Thornton Jr., wide receiver out of Tennessee that you talked about, just blazing 40. Did you say 6'5", Jacob? Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
That is 6'5" with 4.3 speed. Insane. Gray Zabel, offensive line. So now you're seeing Gray Zabel. Not only did he show up at the Senior Bowl, but now the dude has shown up at the combine as well, right? So I'm just telling you, man, it's something. That dude, his name is popping up everywhere you go, right? So definitely something to keep an eye on. Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon. You've got offensive lineman Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State. You got defensive back out of South Carolina, Nick Emenwore. That's a safety, I believe. Jahdae Barron out of Texas, defensive back. Darian Porter, blazing 40-yard dash, if I remember correctly. Is he Iowa State as well?
Yep.
Damn, look at Iowa State, boys.
Yeah.
They're putting out the prospects. And then our boy Jahide Campbell on the Packers' radar. They met with him, linebacker out of Bama. James Pierce Jr., edge out of Tennessee. Shamar Stewart, edge out of Texas A&M. Landon Jackson, edge defender out of Arkansas.
Beast.
Donovan, say it for me, Jacob.
Ezeruku.
There you go. Edge defender out of BC. And then, of course, Ahmad
Hassanin?
Hassanin,
yeah. Which, by the way, I wanted to look him up. Him and Donovan. Donovan was a bit undersized, but dude, he graded out so well. And Ahmed as well had some kind of sneaky grades. Really, really impressed with those guys. And obviously, we talked about Landon Jackson, the dude that's supposedly anywhere from like 6'6" to 6'8", almost 300 pounds, but he ran like a 4.6 or something. Like just insane.
Yeah. So there is your all combine team from this year's NFL Scouting Combine. Also, news of the day, Isaiah Bond, wide receiver out of Texas. He met with the Packers. Isaiah Bond is currently 126 on our PTA big board. Dane Brugler had him higher at 94 on his big board. So the Packers are interested in Isaiah Bond. You're seeing the Packers show a lot of interest in wide receivers this year, Jacob, for sure, man. What do you think about Isaiah Bond? How do you feel about that dude?
Yeah, he's interesting. Draft Buzz has him listed as a multi-role receiver. He ran a 4.39, which is pretty fast. He's just turned 20. He's 20.1 years old. That's kind of crazy. Not very great with the hand size, 8.5 inches. Weight, not great. Height, not the best. Arm size, not the best. But his 40 and his 10-yard split are almost elite. So he's a little bit undersized for sure, but it looks like that he's an absolute playmaker. That I'm not the biggest fan to his, but Draft Buzz has him overall as like their 6th wide receiver. So that's some people are thinking, yeah.
Got it. Mike Hebring in the chat with a super chat. Thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate you, buddy. Good to see you tonight. He says, just for the record, Gray Zabel is my guy in round 1 to play center. Hey,
I like that.
If you can justify taking a center in the first round, no better way to justify it than a dude that can play in all 5 positions on the offensive line that he proved at the Senior Bowl. So that might make a lot of sense there, Mike. We're a little bit lower on him on our board. And again, it's not my personal opinion. It's just how he fell on the board. But we got Gray Zabel. Where was he? We talked about him earlier. Should be easier to find.
I said like 52 or something like that.
We got him at 52. Boy, he's got a lot of numbers on here too, though. That you feel a lot better when you don't see any blank boxes. Like, okay, we've got all the bases covered. So that's a solid 52 for us. So he was the 155th graded at his position, which I think was tackle in 2022. He jumped all the way to 24th in 2023. Then he jumped all the way to 5th in 2024. So check the box, incremental growth. PFF grade was high. PFF Big Board had him in the 39 spot early in the process. Consensus Big Board had him at 74. So that's what's pulling him down on our board up to this point. Daniel Jeremiah had him in the 48 spot. So he would think that 23 is a little rich there, unless you traded back a little later in the first round, maybe. He did get the 5-point Senior Bowl bonus. Obviously, he balled out. 33rd team had him in the 89 spot. Dane Brugler had him at 38. So if you were to look at our three kind of scouting advisors between DJ, Kyle Krabs, and Dane Brugler was the highest on him, and he was at 38. So I don't know, man. If they take him in the first round, Mike, it's probably one of those players, and the Packers have a little bit of precedent for this. One of those players, Jacob, that at the last second they start to rise like crazy. That was Quay Walker. Packers like going to get him. Could be the case. What do you think about Gray Zabel in the first round, man?
I'd completely be okay with it. That's honestly, it's been my I have to get out of these patterns I've been doing with my mock drafts, because basically they simulates down to 23. I see like 5 to 6 dudes that I'm okay with, like within the next 10 picks. I hit that trade button. I drop down maybe 3 to 5 picks to see Gray Zabel there, and I'm like, yep. And I just click it and go. And
outside of the third round, your draft is always the same, ain't it?
Yeah,
that's my guy. That's my guy.
Yeah.
I understand. That's why it's important to try to jump around on other websites too. But you get some, like the other day, I think it was Draft Buzz, right?
The Draft Buzz mock is it's not even. It's somebody needs to be fired. Like, it's so bad.
Those people are hitting the pipe. Put the pipe down. Put the pipe down. Matter of fact, I think we got a sound drop for that now, man. If I can find it here, I know it's here somewhere.
Could be a crackhead that got hold to the wrong stuff.
Could be a crackhead got hold to the wrong draft board. That's what that was. So, Mike, thank you for the super chat, man. That's very, very interesting comment. I'm eager to see if anybody sees him as a first round, because there's rumors about that. So I heard I can't remember who it was. Someone said top 20. I went, damn. All right, let's go. So Gray Zabel is skyrocketing, but we'll see where he ends up for sure. Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, the 49ers are trying to shop him around like crazy, right? It sounds like it anyway. I said, Packer fans, what would you be willing to trade for wide receiver Brandon Ayuk? Jacob, these 33 comments, I would just about venture to say that at least 25 of them said, I don't want him for anything. Not doing it. It kind of surprised me, because Packer fans are usually like wide receiver crazy. Mm-hmm. And if we look at his PFF grades, 80, 75, 78, 91, and 74. And correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Goody going to take him? Didn't the 49ers jump up and grab him before Goody, if I remember correctly?
I believe that is correct.
And that was the year we took Love, right? We settled for Love because they wanted Ayuk, but the Niners took him right before. So I don't know, man. What do you think? And I looked up his contract earlier too. Let me give you this. Let me give you the full script here so you can make a decision on whether you would do it or not. He's still under contract for 1, 2, 3, 4 years. Okay. So the cap hit this year is $11.1 million. Now, if you look at just how the proration bonus, the option proration, it'd be 1.1 plus 4.5. So it'd be 5, 6. To me, it looks like his cap hit, if the Packers took him on this year, I don't think the proration accelerates because there's not just 1 year left on the deal. I think you would just pick that up all the way around. The optional proration travels for the most part is what we're seeing. At least that's the new thing in contractual obligations across the NFL right now. His workout bonus, $100,000. I'm trying to see here. Roster GM, his signing bonus. It looks like all the stuff that they kicked out was with voidable years. So maybe another $13 million would accelerate into that contract, and it would just spread out evenly over the 3 years. If that were the case, 13 over 3 would be 6 plus that. So it's probably the $11 million. So if this contract sits the way it is, Jacob, and I'm reading it correctly, his cap hit would be $11.1 million. Okay, this year. It jumps to 16.2 next year. And then 2027, it jumps all the way to 42.2. But the majority of the guaranteed money's gone. So people are looking at the contract like, that's too much money. That's too much money. I mean, you're looking at 11.1 and 16.2, if I'm reading it correctly, unless the voided aspect of the option proration would accelerate to the current year for the team that's absorbing the contract. Does that make sense? So I guess here's the best way to ask you. How much money are you willing to pay and what kind of draft compensation? Or do you not even want him? That could be the answer too.
I personally don't want him.
Okay.
It's not necessary. I think he's a great player. I think that he will bounce back. Again, I'm cheap and I don't want to pay anywhere near 15, 16, 20 million towards a receiver that, again, he's trying to get off of a team that's a great team. He's had injuries. He's getting around to be older, not quite up to the 30-year mark, but he's hovering. To me, I'd just rather draft, man.
Okay. Gotcha. And it looks like who is this? It said there 2-0 for this says Ayuk has had one good year and then got hurt. I mean, the PFF grades aren't saying that. Let me look real quick just to double check because you may be 100% correct there, 2-0 for this. Let me hop back over to NFL Pro and let me pull up his statistics. So we're obviously talking about the 49ers. Let's go to stats. See if we can get Brandon Ayuk's career stats here. So let's see what he's actually done. Starting in 2020, he had, where are you at, sir? 748 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's his rookie year. 826 and 5 touchdowns the second year. 2022, 1,015 with 8 touchdowns. 2023, 1,342 with 7 touchdowns. So targets around 114 to 105. And then, of course, last year he got hurt and he only played in 7 games last year. So if you're telling me we could get a 1,300-yard receiver with 7 tutters, couple that with our boy Jaden Reed, I don't mind it at $11 million. Now, what's the draft compensation? You know, if it's a 4th or a 5th round pick, I wouldn't mind it. But like many people were saying on Twitter, it sounded like there was some drama too. It wasn't just Debo that had drama. I think Brandon Ayuk had a little drama last year too. So if that's the case, that ain't gonna fly in Green Bay, obviously. So there you go, Brandon Ayuk. Anything else you want to add there, man?
No. I'm just yeah, I don't know who it was in the chat said, Packer fan here. He goes, if Jacob can't field the team with $20, he doesn't want it. Pretty much, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a draft and develop type person.
You gotta be able to buy a pack of smokes. You know what I'm saying, man? You gotta have a little spending money around the block. So, yeah, I'm all about paying players what they're worth, but never overpaying for anything other than great. You'll overpay for great, but don't overpay for good. Don't overpay for solid or above average or whatever. As Ben Holden says, Godwin is the man. That's the one I feel like if you're going to overpay a little bit, that makes a lot of sense. It does. But again, if Tetairoa McMillan falls to you at 23, if you said, Clayton, you got a time machine, all right? It's a DeLorean, all right? if you could go in time, in the future and go, okay, here's what's going to happen in the draft, and Tetairoa McMillan is going to drop, I would say stand pat and draft him, hands down. But not knowing if he's going to be there, are you just going to go into the season with a second or a third round wide receiver? That's Goody's MO. They've done pretty damn good drafting wide receivers in the second round for sure. So, no.
Yeah.
Anybody else you want to look at here on the draft board before we wrap up, man? I think we've covered everything.
I actually did have maybe just a couple if you got a couple minutes.
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right. So I was looking for, you guys know I love late round steals, bargain bin type stuff, specifically at the quarterback position. I came around a guy. His name is Elijah Huzzie, spelled ALIJAH.
Yep, we got him right here. As a matter of fact,
out of UNC. Yep.
We got him in the 261 spot. Okay, and the reason being is PFF grade in 2023 was a 266. 2024 it was a 209. The PFF big board had him at 147. The consensus big board had him all the way at 332 at the end of the college football season. Okay. So since then, he may have skyrocketed up boards. We're going to keep ours the same. That's why we've got him at 261. Are you thinking that maybe that 2022 grade, that might be the real Huzzie there? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, I mean, he had 807 snaps in 2022. He was an 84.9, which was the 22nd cornerback ranking. 2023 he went to 73.3, 2024 74.2. So never really had a bad year. A little bit undersized at 5'10", 195, but I just thought that, if he's in that 4th, 5th, 6th round even, that'd be a great guy to take a stab at.
Yeah. All right.
One more, at least. Cam Horsley, defensive tackle out of Boston College. This one, I really don't know how he's not ranked higher on most boards. Where did you guys got him?
We've got him, if I'm looking at this correctly, in the 284 spot. Now, the Packers did meet with him out of Boston College at the East-West Shrine Bowl, I believe. So the reason he's in that 284 spot, in 2022, he was the 293rd best defensive lineman. In 2023, he jumped to 199. In 24, he jumped all the way to 54. So that 54 helped a lot. PFF Big Board had him at 179. The consensus Big Board is really what's hurting him, Jacob. At the end of the college football season, the consensus Big Board had him at 356. So here's the thing. If Daniel Jeremiah has him in his top 150, that'll help. If 33rd team ends up at the top 150, that'll help. Dane Brugler, same thing. And then if he ends up testing, he hasn't tested yet, right? Am I thinking right? Or maybe he had an incomplete possibly.
Yeah, I don't know if he's doing like one of those at the facility type things. I didn't see much from him at the actual combine.
Got it. So, yeah, I mean, he could help himself here. If he ends up in the top 150 amongst those three, then I could see him climbing up within the top 200 for us.
I mean, because I just look at the way he grades out here. He has predominantly B gap, but he did play a considerable amount in A gap. He's 6'4", 300 plus pounds, almost had an 80 grade. And his pass rush win rate, for being a big boy isn't great at 7.9, but that's not really what you're asking him to do. His pass rush grade was a 68.2, which again, that's pretty good. But his run defense grade is an 84.5, and his run stop percentage rate was 14.4. So the guy, and he had his best game against Michigan State as an 82.8 this last year. So I just thought.
So how did he? I wonder how he graded out so bad, right? I mean, no, would you say it was 80 something, right?
80. So, he was the 79.8 in 2024.
Okay, yeah.
So,
but in 23, what was he again with that 199? What was he?
72.5 in 2022 was a 70.2.
That's not like horrible, right? So
no, he's gotten better every year.
Yeah, that's a good point. Keep an eye on Horse. Hey, it's obvious that the Packers are interested, man. We get the cheese emoji next to him there. So
yep.
Who else you got?
Real quick would be Elijah Alston, ELIJAHALSTON, edge defender out of Miami.
Got it. So we got Elijah Alston. The Packers did meet with him. All right. He's an edge defender. In 2022, he was 684th at his position in PFF. Then he jumped all the way to 4th in 2023. In 2024, he dropped back to 72nd. So we've got him in the 235 spot on our board. PFF Big Board had him at 213. Once again, the consensus Big Board had him at 363. So both of these players you're mentioning, if you remove the consensus Big Board at the end of the college football season where they had him ranked, they would be much higher on our board, man, no doubt.
Yeah, that just to me screams good. 2023, he played 13 games, had 5 sacks, bunch of hits and hurries, batted a couple balls down, a 91.3, guys. That's impressive. And even this last year, he was an 81 flat, played 8 games, so there must be a little bit of an injury, something there going on. But his 2 best games was against Florida with an 85.2 and ended the year with a 92 grade against Iowa State. So a little bit promising, I think, there. The only thing I look at him is he's a little bit undersized for what the Packers usually do. He's 6'2", 256, redshirt senior, so that may be pulling him down as well.
Mm-hmm. Got it. All right, who else, man?
Last one that I just wanted to touch on quick was a guy we kind of mentioned already, but Clay Webb, the guard out of Jacksonville State.
Mm-hmm. Got him. We got him in the 115 spot on our board.
115, really?
Yeah, 115. Obviously performed at the Senior Bowl. I don't think the Packers have met with him to this point. Doesn't mean they're not interested, though. 2022, he was 13th at his position. 2023, 3rd. 2024, 9th. PFF Big Board had him at 202. The consensus Big Board had him at 241. And he did get the RAS bonus, so he finished in the 9s. RAS. So
talk about a guy that's graded out well. Obviously a smaller school, so you want him to do that. But you look at the size and the skill. He's 6'3", 290. He let 3 sacks his whole career in college go, only 3 hits and only 7 hurries total. He played every single snap other than one time at left tackle in 2022. All of his snaps have been at left guard. So if it's a situation where, depending on how the chips fall, if we could plug and play a guy like that at left guard, if we have to switch Elton to center, whatever the case may be, it's nice to have a guy like that as a little bit of backup.
Yeah, for sure. And, just looking at where we're drafting at too, if he's sitting there at pick 123, that make a lot of sense, Jacob, a lot of sense. So that would kind of be your guard, your mid-round guard pick. I'm thinking like a TJ Lang, somebody like that, right? From back in the day. So It's interesting. Yeah, Clay Webb, someone to keep an eye on for sure. So if we were to resort the board here by overall value, just to give you guys an update, because I know Isaiah Bond got at it. I don't think he's that high on our board, but the top prospects that the Packers have shown interest in the 10 spot, James Pierce Jr., edge out of Tennessee. In the 15 spot, Colston Loveland, tight end. Let me do this, make it a little easier, actually, so you guys can actually see the names here. Number 15, tight end Colston Loveland out of Michigan. Number 16, Kenneth Grant, defensive lineman out of Michigan. Jahdae Barron, a versatile corner out of Texas in the 17 spot. Packers have met with him. Jahad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama in the 22 spot. Packers have met with him. Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss in the 24 spot. The Packers have met with him. Donovan Ezaraku, however you say the name, edge defender out of Boston College in the 30 spot. The Packers have met with him. What should that be the pick this year? That one right there be the pick.
I love that guy. He's just undersized. He's a little bit 6'2" again. So
Matthew Golden obviously helped himself at the combine. We got him in the 37 spot, and the Packers met with him as well. So if you're looking at just like potential first round talent on our board, you got one edge, one D lineman, right? One linebacker, one corner, one tight end, two D linemen, two edges. So it's D-line and edge leading the way, but also a tight end and a corner that the Packers have shown interest in. So that's going to be really interesting to see if they have any other visits. They're going to have a bunch of visits. I think we're going to have the top 30 visits. We'll put a lot of merit in that. We're going to get the threshold down as well and try to get you guys the top targets for the Packers. What we mean by that is everything lines up. All the stars line up. Last year, there were, once again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, only 6 players out of over 250 players on our board. Only 6 met all the criteria as one of the Packers' favorite players, right? Those players were running back, sweet baby Ray Davis out of Kentucky. We had Hall Jr., Michael Hall Jr., out of, I'm trying to see, man. I'm getting old, Jacob. I am getting old.
Wasn't he out of Michigan, I thought?
No, I can't see what the name says there.
Or no, Michael Hall was, I thought he was Ohio State.
Yeah, Ohio State. That's it. Yeah. It's such small written right in here. Defensive tackle Michael Hall Jr. out of Ohio State. We had Marshawn Nealon, edge defender out of Western Michigan.
Yeah.
We had Austin Booker, edge defender out of Kansas. And then we had our very own Katan Oladapo out of Oregon State. So one of the 6 players that we had listed here, the Packers drafted. And the other guy, actually, I was wrong, Tyron Hopper.
Hey.
So we got 2. We literally labeled 6 players on our board that said, these are the 6 that the Packers are most likely to draft. And we got 2 of them. That's pretty cool.
That's pretty good, man.
Yeah. If I don't know if you can gamble on any player being picked, but if we come down to this and there's less than 10, and you know how those odds are on those players. This player,
dude, I bet you there's a book somewhere that does that. We should try to find that out. Let's all pull together.
Is it a legal book? That's the question. If it is, you're right, Jacob.
Nah, dude, my cousin Vinny knows a guy.
He knows a guy who knows a guy who's still in the clink, but he knows a guy. So, that would be fun if we could find a book that we could put a bet down and say, okay, let's say we got 8 players this year, and it's plus 15,000 for them to go to the Packers. You know what I'm saying,
dude? There's got to be a legal way to do it too. If not, we got to make some calls, man, because we can make an app, have Tim develop a little app, and then all of a sudden, hey,
Tim over there, I don't develop apps. What are you talking about?
Well, hey, Will, he should.
He should. It's good money in it.
Yeah.
There's some of the will. That would be fun. We need to do that. Don't let me forget that. All right. And we got to run down the thresholds again. I want to say it was was it Packer Wire? I think it was Packer Wire. That does it every year. They got the thresholds that kind of shows the players that meet those thresholds. Really cool draft guide. So we'll try to run that down. So yeah, there you go. Anything else, man? Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No, I think that'll be good, man.
A-Fam says baggy pants bookie. That's right, man. That's the one.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm ready to are you expecting to have maybe some contract stuff happening in the near future, or what are you thinking?
It's very interesting because that window opened around the 25th and we have no restructures. To me, it feels like now he could have some restructures. Like I guarantee you he's got a blueprint, he being Goody, of potential restructures he could work out that the player will go, hell yeah, I'll take more guaranteed money. But right now you don't need the cap space. So I'm wondering if he's looking at it like, let's go into free agency. And Brian Gutekunst can be like, all right, let's go after this player, and this player. Okay, he accepts. Cool. We got the money to carry it right now. Sign him, then do the restructure. And if for some reason, if he takes a swing at 1, 2, maybe 3 free agents and they don't accept the offer, stay pat and don't restructure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In the past, it kind of felt like where they had kicked the can down the road and you obviously had to carry the Aaron Rodgers cap penalty of whatever it was, $40 million. And then last year it was like $20 million in dead cap. Kind of felt like you had to structure yourself just to have money to play with. But I'm just wondering if Goody's looking at it a little bit different this year. Like, you know what? Let's don't guarantee all that money because like we've talked about on the show many times, if a player gets hurt and the money ain't guaranteed, you're getting that salary check back, you know, and you're saving on cap. So he may be looking at it that way. Does that answer your question? Was that what you were asking?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because again, I kind of expected it because you could roll cap over, go ahead and free some cap up. If you need it, great. If not, roll it over. But it seems like Goody's if he's going to do it, he's waiting a little longer than he normally does. But guys, we're 7 days away from free agency, man. As we got it right here, March 10th, right? March 10th, free agency negotiation period begins. And then March 12th is when they can actually sign. So March 10th starts the legal tampering period, right? So players can be recruited and obviously take offers, and they can agree to the offer, but the contract cannot become official and valid until the 12th. So we're 7 days away, ladies and gents. 7 days away. Anything else, Jacob?
No, man, I'm excited. Let's go.
All right. That's it, guys. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us, man. This was a lot of fun. We will be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central, for more PTA Live. Who knows? We might get another signing, as obviously we had the news tonight of Isaiah McDuffie signing a 2-year extension with the Packers for somewhere between $8 to $9.5 million, depending on how the incentives will fall. So, Jake, appreciate your time, but it's always fun talking ball with you, man.
Yes, sir. Go back. Go.
Shout out to Mike Hebring. Thank you for the super chat, pal. We'll see y'all tomorrow night. Everybody have a great night. Hit that like button on the way out.
And we go.
We're out. Bye, guys.